Why hello you amazing beautiful people, and welcome back to another reaction video. This one is honestly one I should have done a while ago. So when we finished Mob Psycho 100, there was a few other videos that a lot of you recommended, and one that was recommended above all else was this one right here, and that is the value of a fraud. I believe this is sort of like a Reigen deep dive, and I'm kind of curious about this because I feel like where Mob Psycho 100 shines is its realism, you know? It's like nestled in reality. It feels incredibly relatable, especially for like adolescents, you know? And I feel like Reigen kind of marks that, you know? And I feel like if you compare it to shows like Breaking Bad, where you have that kind of realism in characters not being flawless, I think Mob Psycho 100 kind of does that too. And I feel like having this guy, Reigen, in it, like as kind of like the role model of the anime, despite being a fraud, a trickster, or whatever you want to call him, but also just being relatable, is kind of brilliant. And is like, I imagine it's very hard to get a character who, you know, would be considered a bad guy in most instances, but is actually the best boy. You know what I mean? So I'm kind of curious, especially considering he's quite young as well. So I'm kind of curious to see what this video does in breaking that down, understanding it. Honestly, I've wanted to watch this for a while, so let's finally do it. Press that like button if you want more reactions like this, and that subscribe button, and let me know in that comment section down below what else you'd like to see. Without more talking from me, let's move to my first reaction to the value of a fraud, Mob Psycho 100. I already really like how they've edited this opening. Nice.
I wish this show existed when I was in middle school. I don't know if it would have changed my life, but a story about a kid struggling to figure out his own life despite his natural talents, that story would have been just the tiniest bit comforting. Mob Psycho 100 was a series created by One, best known for his smash hit series Makai no Osan in 2012 and the slightly lesser known One Punch Man in 2009. Serialized from 2012 to 2017 with an adaptation by Studio Bones airing in 2016, Mob Psycho 100 follows Shigeo Kageyama, also known as Mob, a shy and timid middle school boy with godlike psychic powers as he works for Reigen, a self-proclaimed...
I'm gonna say this right now. Very, very good video already. We're only 45 seconds in. I just want to give the channel a shout out. Kyle Robes is the name of the channel that put this video together. Make sure you go check them out. Give their video some support. Press the like button on their video, and because they're close to 100,000 likes, so that'd be kind of cool. So go show them some love, because already from this opening alone, the editing and just the commentary is fantastic.
Claimed psychic with absolutely no powers at all. It's a show that exudes childhood innocence, taking one's intentionally crude and amateur art style and leaning into it. It's a uniquely beautiful show. And much like One Punch Man before it, this story is very much a deconstruction, but instead of superheroes, this one is aimed squarely at the kids with supernatural abilities genre, where the main character's personal growth is tied to the strength of their powers. It's a fairly standard formula, a great way to externalize an internal struggle. Mob Psycho 100 takes that formula and breaks it entirely by making the main character the most powerful being on Earth from the start. That, in itself, is a lot of fun. The story breaks a lot of conventions and is filled with subversions. I think my favorite one is with the Body Improvement Club. I mean, obviously, one doesn't do the lazy thing and subvert the jock archetype by filling the club with scrawny dudes or playing up their vulnerabilities to make them seem weak, a subversion that I find a bit distasteful because it tends to feed into some of the worst stereotypes. Instead,
I actually very much agree with everything he's just about to say. One thing I loved about the Body Improvement Club was that they are the ultimate bros, the ultimate chads. You know, we see them almost take over this damn room from what you would consider, I don't know, the geeks? I don't know, but from that moment, you kind of get like an image like, oh, okay, these guys kind of, you know, they're going to be douches. They've taken this room, you know, it's now theirs, blah, 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 blah. Turns out they're the best damn boys in the world.
One dials up their desire for self-improvement to 11 and turns them into the most wholesome group of muscleheads that deserve nothing but love. As I often say though, I think deconstructions work best when you have something interesting to say about the pieces of the thing you break. And in the case of Mob Psycho, the thing one wants to say is pretty obvious. In stories like this, a character's growth is tied to their abilities. The closer they get to self-actualization, the stronger their abilities become. But I've always found that there are some weird implications that can come from telling a story like this, because sometimes it can be very easy to read into the opposite. Instead of self-actualization being the reason for a character's strength, the strength becomes the reason for a character's self-actualization. When the story is focused heavily on some inherent ability, the message you can take away from that isn't the best. If only I was gifted or talented in some special way, then all my problems could be solved. I don't think that message is intentional, and that isn't to say that's...
No, I agree. I don't think that's intentional, but that is a good point. Obviously, if you have these characters who are so damn strong, become stronger, and the stronger they become, the easier things become, the more they emotionally strengthen themselves and find emotional resolve as well, is obviously going to have implications, you know? It's the same with like any superhero movie. You look at these people who you can never become, and as they get stronger and more powerful and become further out of your reach, that's when they find their emotional stability, you know? And yeah, you could take a wrong message from that.
Stories with this structure are automatically bad for that reason. This formula is prevalent because for the most part, it works. But it's very clear that this was the thing one wanted to comment on. Mob starts off with the power of a god, but just because he's gifted, that doesn't mean he doesn't have problems. Mob's powers and abilities are just one part of him, and that doesn't make him special or immune from the struggles that everyone faces because, and I wish I realized this back in middle school, there are times when natural talent don't mean a damn thing. More often than not, there will be people out there that are more talented, and there might be times when your natural abilities don't help with getting what you want. And to me, that's what makes this such an effective deconstruction. It doesn't just pick apart a genre to point out how absurd it is, it also puts it back together to create a coming-of-age story from a different perspective, one that's...
That is brilliant, and it really makes sense with like Mob Psycho 100's ending. Obviously, this is going to be a spoiler if you haven't seen the anime. I don't know why you're watching this video, but there's a little spoiler coming. At the end, obviously, the whole penultimate moment of the damn anime is him getting rejected, you know, and him like understanding that rejection. And I feel like that leans into that kind of message the whole anime presents, is despite being a god, Mob is still just like us. He's still normal. Those abilities don't solve his problems. It didn't get him the girl. It didn't make him the most shredded buff dude in the entire school. It didn't achieve his number one desire, which was to get the girl. And it didn't help him with that. His abilities never got him there in the end, but it was about overcoming the nerves and the emotion to just simply ask the question. And even if the answer was no, it didn't matter because he was able to ask the question. And that leans into, again, the core message, which is like, just because you're overpowered doesn't mean it's going to get you what you want.
It's more focused on personal growth. Don't get me wrong though, the show is still,
yeah. Oi.
Pretty ridiculous, and that's a lot of fun. But back to what I was saying. The idea that you're not special is the most blatant message that the story presents, but just like before, it can be easy to take this message in the wrong way too. And I think one is aware of that, which brings us to Reigen.
Here we go. Oh boy! Oh boy! Yeah boy!
In the story of Mob Psycho 100, I see Reigen as the perfect complement to Mob, a man with no latent psychic powers but is so savvy and sociable that he can seemingly bend people to his will through sheer charisma alone. You could argue that Ritsu is Mob's complement as someone who's successful without powers, at least in the beginning, but I think there's an important distinction between them. Here's something I find really interesting about the way Reigen is characterized. He's someone who would arguably gain the most if he became an Esper. Ritsu eventually gained psychic abilities like he always wanted, but finds out pretty quickly that it doesn't really fulfill him in any way. Reigen, on the other hand, would stand to benefit if he suddenly got powers. His job would be a lot easier, he wouldn't need to rely on Mob so much, and he could make more money that way. But at no point in the show is he ever jealous of Mob's or anyone else's psychic abilities. And while you could say that there's no reason Reigen would be because he's lazy and knows he can call Mob at any time, there are a lot of points in the story that imply that this isn't how he feels. When Reigen gained powers briefly through Mob, he's quick to point out that those were Mob's powers, doesn't even humor the idea that he might have awakened powers because of it, and in general, doesn't really dwell on the experience at all. When Mob stopped showing...
That is a very good point. One I never properly thought about. When Reigen does finally get to use powers, he understands, like he can use them. In his own mind, he's using them. Imagine right now, you could just use powers, okay? All of a sudden, boom, you could use powers. Except in Reigen's case, it is someone who drastically benefits to using them. For us, it would just be fun, you know? But for Reigen, it's something that could literally change his entire life for the better. And it's interesting when you think about that, because Reigen never chases the betterment and fulfillment of his life. Even when he's offered at some point shit tons of money, he turns it down. He is brilliantly complex.
Showing up to work, Reigen makes a point of taking on jobs he thinks he is capable of and doesn't even try or
How have I never noticed there was a fucking Chucky doll? There was a damn Chucky doll in there.
Reigen
How have I never
makes
noticed? Look at this.
Of taking on jobs
There's a
he
freaking
thinks
Chucky
he's
doll right
capable of
there.
and doesn't even try or wish that he could
How did I
do
not notice
more.
that?
He's completely indifferent to the idea of actually becoming a psychic, even though he knows how useful having powers would be for him. That's a really interesting mindset to give a character like Reigen, a quiet acceptance that this is just how he is. That's sort of why I think Reigen serves as a better complement to Mob. They have opposing characteristics. One has powers, the other doesn't. One is not socially adept, the other has God-given charisma, but fundamentally they both believe the same things. They don't think they're special. And it's through Reigen that I think one adds a bit more nuance to the message of the story, because Reigen's arc seems to imply that this way of thinking isn't always good. There are a couple of ways you can take Reigen's downfall. One way to look at it is that this is his comeuppance. Reigen was taking advantage of Mob, said terrible things to him, and started to believe just a bit too much in his own hype. His downfall is karmic justice for leeching off of Mob's work. I think this is a perfectly fine way to read these events. It lines up with the message of the show. It's an arc about humility. But for me personally, I think there's a bit more to it, because Reigen isn't like any of the other antagonists in the story. While he might be full of himself at times, he's very cognizant of his own abilities and doesn't think he's special in any way. That's the lesson he passed down to Mob. And the show hammers
that is actually kind of true, because even when he talks about his previous job and his current job, he never talks about it like he's got this greater calling to help people, look after people, blah, blah, blah. He always just talks about like, it's just something that was easy for me to do, you know? Always.
Home this idea. Reigen and Mob are constantly telling larger-than-life characters that their natural-born abilities don't make them special. Success, admiration, praise are things you have to work for, not something people are entitled to. So here's the big problem for Reigen, because despite believing in all of that, and despite having no powers whatsoever,
I love that covenant
he somehow managed to find success as a psychic anyways. And I think that disconnect between what Reigen knows he's capable of and what he's achieved eats away at him. It's a feeling I think he could push off with Mob around, but the moment Mob walked away, it was something Reigen couldn't ignore. When he tries to reform himself as the brand new Reigen, I don't see that as a rejection of Mob. It isn't really. If it was, he would try to do the exact same things without Mob's help just to prove that he could. But he doesn't try to do what Mob could. He doesn't take on jobs he would if Mob was around. Reigen knows exactly what he's capable of and doubles down on those things. And in some ways, that's admirable. Pushing yourself to your limits to see what you can do is generally seen as a good thing, but this is not that. What I see in Reigen is a personification of imposter syndrome, or a specific version of it. The idea that your success is not due to anything you've done, but the result of luck. And at any moment, you're...
It's funny. This is going to be completely off tangent here. Do you ever have an itch that you just can't find? I said this to my wife and she said, no, I was crazy. And like, every now and then I'll say something to my wife and she goes, you're crazy. And I'm like, am I crazy? Maybe I'm crazy. But like, I got an itch somewhere on my body right now, right? Like, and it feels like it's on my arm. But when I go to scratch where the itch feels like it doesn't get rid of the itch. So then I'm like, where the bloody hell is the itch? Do you guys ever have that? Or do I sound like a nut job? Like, right, there's a bloody itch. I can feel it. Somewhere here when I move my arm. God damn it. Fuck off. Where is it? Is it here? I must just look like a crazy person. That's the other thing I wanted to say, which wasn't about the itch, was imposter syndrome is actually something that I try and avoid ever saying. In fact, I think this is the first time it's ever left my mouth. Because I speak to other creators and they constantly say that it's something that they suffer with. So I've always wanted to make sure I never say it's something I have. But I will just say, I feel like I know a bunch of people who feel like that. And I imagine a lot of you feel like that sometimes. And if you do ever feel like that, just take a moment to step back, look at your life, properly analyze it. Because I feel like imposter syndrome comes from never fully taking a moment for yourself. That's at least my opinion. I feel like a lot of people thunder through life, never slowing down. Sometimes it's good just to slow down, even for 20 minutes. Slow down, take a deep breath, think about your life, think about your achievements, think about who made them possible. Recently, I was live streaming on Twitch, and I actually was talking about this to someone, and someone was very much against my opinion, because I said that a lot of someone's own accomplishments should be attuned to them. And then someone in my on Twitch said that they completely disagree with me and think that because we were talking about teachers, and they said like a teacher in school, like a great teacher, they basically said, like in simple terms, if I was a student in a class and I get great grades in that class, that is the teacher's like reason, like that they get the credit. It's them who did it, not me. That the teacher is the one who achieved the good grades out of me. I did not achieve it myself. And my counterpoint to this was, you can have a great teacher, but if that's the case, how come every student in that class gets a different grade? If the teacher is so fantastic and wonderful and deserves 100% of the credit for the student's success, then why is it that only the best students, all the students, like the percent that comes out of A's, that's the teacher's success. But then all the other students that failed, it's their fault. So why does it not count? If the teacher is responsible for the success, then the teacher is responsible for the failures. And if it's the teacher's 100% success that all the students who got A's, then is it also not the teacher's 100% fault that all the students got the lower grades? And if that's the case, then surely the teacher can't be 100% responsible for the A's, because we have a class full of people and none of them got the same grade. You see what I'm saying? It doesn't make any sense. You can't be the best and the worst at the same time. It doesn't work like that. So the only different element is the students. So again, that's what I was trying to say. There is that element. The students put it in. Otherwise, the teacher just neglected them, which doesn't make any sense, because if the teacher neglected one student, it doesn't deserve to be called the best teacher because it neglected students, so it's not a good teacher. So what I was trying to say is, the person was very against me saying that the teacher deserves the credit, and I was going, no. I was going, a good teacher deserves some credit. I said, but the students deserve a lot of credit. As someone who's gone to university for a long time, I was at university for 5 years, who went through 2 different degrees, I can tell you right now that the teachers definitely help, but it's the students that are the main reason. It is the driving force behind those grades. And that's why I'm kind of pointing this out. And I don't remember how it's relevant to this, but I just want to say that. There you go.
Your success
Basically,
is not due to
you're
anything
amazing.
you've done, but the result of luck. And at any moment, your life can come crashing down once people realize how much of a fraud you are. And that's what Reigen is, a fraud, a con man, a fake psychic who has to lie his way around to make a living. He's the feeling of imposter syndrome made literal. Reigen never intended for this to happen. He was about to walk away from this whole thing until, through sheer luck, Mob showed up. And because Reigen believes so strongly that you have to earn success, there's no room for luck. People made Reigen out to be special. They gave him admiration and praise. The only way to reconcile that with what he believes is to prove that his own efforts, the things he can accomplish on his own, are worthy of those things. Mob walking away was a product of Reigen's actions. He was a jerk. But everything after that was the result of his own insecurities. But nothing can really change the fact that Reigen is a successful fake psychic. No matter what he does, no matter how big he makes it, that will always be true. And in trying more and more to feed into a figure of everyone else's making, he eventually reaches a point where his abilities aren't enough. And when the floor finally falls out from under him and Reigen is exposed, that feeling of being an imposter is just something he has to accept. I don't think that feeling ever goes away. That's the thing he comes to terms with in the press conference, along with atoning.
That's interesting as well, because it makes you wonder, people who say they suffer with imposter syndrome like Reigen, when you are shown that you are right, how do you feel? How does that work? Let's say you believe that you haven't achieved anything due to your own strengths, your own skills, and you think it's all just fallen in your damn lap. When that feeling is confirmed, what's that like? Do you deny it? Is it reaffirming? Because Reigen, it didn't help, and it's almost like he went against something that he believed, which is interesting.
For the way he treated Mob, accepting that nothing he can do can turn him into the person everyone thinks he is. But that isn't the important part. Reigen always knew that he wasn't special, so I think deep down he always knew that nothing he could do could justify how people saw him. And while coming to terms with that might be good, it doesn't really help. And so Reigen's question to Mob at the end of this whole thing is a little heartbreaking. It isn't really a question, because what Reigen wants most in that moment is to be judged by the person he thinks he deceived most, for pretending to be someone special when he knew he wasn't. Reigen asks Mob if he knows he's an imposter, and Mob's response is that it doesn't matter. Reigen might not think that he's special, and it's good to be humble, but there comes a point when that humility can be self-destructive.
Oh man, bring a tear to my eye.
Built a business from the ground up, tried to help people the best he could, and for some reason, Reigen thinks nothing of accomplishing those things. Even if Reigen doesn't think they're worthy of praise, that shouldn't undercut just how difficult those things are to do. He should take some amount of pride in the things he's done, no matter how small, because sometimes those small things can mean a lot to others. Seeing the moment Reigen and Mob meet from different perspectives reveals a lot, because while Reigen didn't intend for his kind words to mean all that much, those words changed Mob's life regardless. Maybe it was luck that Mob showed up in the right place at the right.
I'm actually getting emotional. Like, it is, oh God. Mob Psycho 100. It's an anime that every damn anime fan needs to watch.
But it wasn't luck that he stayed around, and Reigen gets to experience how little things can change your life firsthand, because Mob returns those kind words to Reigen, words that saved him and allowed him to be seen. Mob tells Reigen that even if he might not be what everyone thinks he is, even if he feels like an imposter, he's still a good guy, trying his best. And that, in itself, is enough.
Shout out Kyle Robes, man. Shout out Kyle Robes. Nailed that video. Fucking awesome. Well done, my friend. Well done. Shout out Kyle Robes, man. Does this channel still upload? Every time I go and look at a channel, they don't. No. A year ago was the last time they uploaded their last video. And the success of their channel was pretty good as well, you know? A year ago, the video got 100,000 views. Then the previous video before that got 100,000 views again. And then like 20 and 27. And then this one got over 1 million. And it's like, it's quite a successful channel. This is like one of the sad realities of the anime space, which I find really like, really like depressing. I would say that as an anime reactor, I am on the smaller side. I think a lot of you would, well, not a lot of you maybe, but some of you will disagree and say that I'm not, but I think I am. And I'll combat it by saying that when I react to anime, my videos get nowhere near as many views as channels that are smaller than me in size, and like reacting to the same things. They get like way more views. And the reason is because my channel is a mongrel channel. You know, it's not an anime only channel. I'm talking about G.O.T games, by the way, because G.O.T Extra is anime only. So it's like, it's not an anime only channel. So obviously my audience, I think people think that I have like a huge anime audience, because a lot of my most viewed videos are anime related, but it's not the case. A lot of my audience is from all over the world. My largest demographics are Japan, but not for anime. It's Japan for my Japanese music reactions. Indonesia, India, you know, like even Germany. I have like a weirdly large audience in Germany. It's like, so that's what I'm trying to say in the US on there. But the reason I'm pointing this out is because as like a smaller anime creator, like on YouTube and going through all these channels, it is unbelievably sad to see how many have stopped. You know, it sucks. There's so many that just have just stopped, and every channel I bloody react to has stopped. And I've had people tell me why, like the financial reasons and the copyright reasons, that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's just like, and because like now it's like, I wish these channels were still uploading regular videos. They deserve the success. They do really well. Like Kyle Robes, this person, don't know much about them, but this person has 19 videos on their channel. 19. The majority of their videos have done exceptionally well. Most of them over 100,000, 19 videos, right? To get 50,000 subscribers from 19 videos is an incredible accomplishment. And now, a year, no videos. It's like, this is a channel that had like potential to be the big boy. And it's just sad because I like so many channels like this have the same thing. I reacted to another anime channel, can't remember which one it was recently, that had 900,000 subscribers and hadn't uploaded in 4 years. It's like, really? What happens, you know? 900,000 subscribers and the videos were copyright free. You must have been making like good money, but they just stopped. Sad, man. But yeah, I just want to say, Carl Robes, you nailed it with this video. It was so amazing, once again, revisiting Mob Psycho 100, reaffirming my love for this anime. The uniqueness of Mob Psycho 100 that makes it so brilliant, like the characters and the story and how it just stands out from other series, I have to say is brilliant. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. And I feel like Kyle did a fantastic job at explaining it all for us. So yeah, thank you so much. Love this freaking video. Link to it is in the description. Go show Kyle some love, all right? Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed my reaction. Please like and subscribe. Have an amazing freaking day. As always, my friends, you will see me in the next video.